Hello and welcome to the Confidence and Beauty Summit, real root cause resolutions that reverse women's hair loss naturally. I am your host, Surreal Vasquez, a multi-certified functional medicine practitioner that is obsessed with reversing hair loss naturally. And today I'm actually being interviewed by one of my students. Her name is Jen Layton. And I wanted to do this just so that you guys had an opportunity to get some of those questions that are probably nagging you in your mind an answer. So, Jen Layton, thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome. So, hi, everybody. I'm Jen. I am a recent graduate of the Belcanic 6-month program, and I'm here today to help give you an inside view on what it's like to work with Cyril and go through her program, and hopefully answer any lingering questions that you might have before going into working with her. So, with that being said, I'm happy to welcome you to the conversation, Cyril. And let's jump right in. You're a multi certified functional medicine practitioner. So, can you tell me a little bit more about your certifications and what it took for you to get here?
Sure, great question. I am a certified functional nutrition counselor, a true cellular detox practitioner, and a certified event interventionist. And I'll just go through each three of these and what exactly I learned in that process. So,
Mhm.
as a certified functional nutrition counselor, I studied under Andrea Nakayama. And so she's a nutritionist, a registered nutritionist that really took the time to unveil exactly how the body works, where it all goes wrong, and what can we do to help fix it. And so it took me probably like a year, to complete the certification, but I really understood by the end of that 1 year commitment that, gosh, like there are so many reasons that we are unaware of that we're chronically ill that are so simple to fix. Like in your case, remember, it was one of the things that were getting us stuck was you not having enough stomach acid. And that's something
Yeah.
that's so simple that can have a remedy, but if we're always chasing the big diagnosis and we don't unveil exactly the step-by-step process that causes the dysfunction
Mhm.
that leads to the diagnosis, then
Yeah.
we don't get a real root cause resolution. And so by the time I was done with that, I just felt so capacitated to uh, restore the body to a healing place by understanding the processes and why they're all interrelated,
Yeah.
because the body is not created in ologies. Nothing is compartmentalized. It's not like our gut knows its gastroenterology, right? It's still
Yeah.
connected to the brain and it's still the vehicle that gives nutrients to the whole body. And so really understanding how everything is connected is, I think, the missing component to getting a real healing for the entire body. And so that's that. And then the second one is, as a true cellular detox practitioner, I studied under Daniel Pompa, Dr. Daniel Pompa. And so there I learned a very in-depth understanding of the cell and how the cell can oftentimes be inflamed. And that could be what is getting in the way of people being able to get the nutrients into the cell and have the cell detox appropriately and have the cell actually utilize the hormones that are attaching to the cell receptors. And so his whole premise was you need to heal the cell to get well. And so I really understood the process of how the body detoxifies and where that gets compromised and how important it is to create that flow, to get the body to work appropriately and not be in the position where it's developing a bunch of symptoms and diseases. You have to restore the body's ability to detox appropriately and not be stagnant with all of these toxicants that are going to create. That's where you're creating a lot of the issues, including hair loss.
Absolutely.
And the last one is a certified event interventionist. So
Mhm.
I actually obtained this certification while I was working in the medical field. I
Okay.
worked in the medical field for 10 years for diagnostic imaging and also for specialty pharmacies. And so I really got a front row seat at that medical model and the advantages of it, where it's a great thing, the pitfalls of it as well, and even how to be my own advocate in the doctor's office, knowing what to look for, knowing who
Mhm.
to partner with, knowing what the red flags are, what the green flags are. And so I try to bring that into private practice. But as a certified event interventionist, when I was working with people that were addicted to drugs and I was helping them get the cure for hepatitis C or getting on medication for HIV, I took that training to be able to intervene when someone needed to go get treatment and use coaching in the moment in that event to convince them to go ahead and get therapy. And so the reason I took that coaching was so that I could have foundations in neurolinguistic programming, which I also learned through other mentors. And neurolinguistic programming is a method that is used to help people realize that they're dealing with their own crap that is getting in the way. So they're getting in their own way. And it was actually
Mhm.
effective in my own ability to break through my own limiting beliefs because I used to think, oh my gosh, I've tried everything. There's no hope for me. I don't know what else I could try. I've done it all. And through neurolinguistic programming, I realized that it was just baloney and I was my own worst enemy and I was getting in my own way. And so when I took that coaching, it gave me the tools to be able to help coach people better through that.
There is so many amazing things that you've just gone over about your experience and what you've done in terms of helping to become a better coach and all the different ways that you can help people who are dealing with hair loss. So, in an industry that's flooded with cures for hair loss, what makes your practice different?
Oh wow. I think the reason why we have the amount of case studies, testimonials, like people being willing to share that they're so relieved that they have a better outcome with their hair now after going through the coaching is because I really take a hands-on approach with everyone, especially like in my 6, 12 month or even my when I offer it, my 2 month program. And so it's that level of access to me, the one-on-one component where, people are able to ask me questions, and get the feedback from me that I think really takes my program to another level. I think in some other programs, it's like, you pay for an initial visit, and then if you have any questions, you have to email them. And then after that, if you want to talk to them again, it's like another couple $100. And they just kind of give you the protocol, and then you just kind of have to figure it out on your own. In my program, we also have a group component. And I think that's so unique because oftentimes when people are dealing with hair loss, they're just thinking like, "Ah, I don't think this is gonna work. I don't know if this is gonna work for me." But when you're sitting in a container with other people
Mhm.
that are already getting the result and you see it from them, you're no longer thinking, oh gosh, I don't think this is gonna work. This is gonna be like everything else, which could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now
Mhm.
your mindset is, am I next? Am I gonna be next? Like how did you do it? How long did it take? And then you start believing that that could actually be the case. And so I think that's what makes the program very unique. And then we also really focus on trying to make each individual person not reliant on me or any other practitioner, but just really get in touch with listening to their body, listen to their body to be able to start making some of these judgments themselves. Like, what is it that you just ate? What is it that where were you in your house that you were breathing in something? I remember in your case, we were having an issue with your environment. And like at
Yeah.
the beginning, you were very indoctrinated to follow the blood work and just kind of like, oh, well, I partnered with this other practitioner and we did these tests and I had H. pylori or I had, what was the thing that it was gone? The celiac,
It was well, I still have celiac. The markers were down. The Hashimoto's
the
was
Hashimoto's.
yeah.
Oh, but the Hashimoto's, they were trending down. But then
Yes.
when working with in this program,
We
it
got it
was,
to the finish line.
yeah, it was finally
Yeah.
like no more antibodies.
Yep.
Right, yeah, but just focusing on chasing like the labs, I feel kind of misses the mark
Hmm.
as opposed to teaching. And I'm not saying that labs don't have a place and that they're not valuable. I
Yeah.
definitely spent a bunch of money on labs myself, although I don't feel like it's necessary to get someone the result initially. I do feel
Hmm.
like there's a place for them at some point in therapy just to make sure that the job is complete and that and that we've gotten the person out of safety because hair loss is just a sign that something way more serious is going on. And although we can guess and get someone to a point where like gosh they feel relief and their hair isn't shedding and it's filling back in and all these other things, we still want to make sure that we've gone far enough. But the point that I'm trying to make is that uh, when people are able to start making these references themselves,
Hmm.
then the power is in their hand, and they're not so reliant on someone else, and so they end up becoming a Belcanic, so someone who masters their body mechanics to reveal their inner bell. And so you can practice that for the rest of your life instead of just always having to rely on like, oh, I got to go to this person for that and that person for this. While you should still do that, you don't have to you don't have to give them all the power. So it's a very empowering process.
Absolutely. I completely agree. As somebody who's gone through the 6 months, there was a lot of hand holding that Surreal did for me in the beginning, but I have become so much more confident in myself and making those decisions. So if you do choose to work with Surreal, just know that you will be empowered to make those decisions at the end of your experience with her. So another question for you. What would you warn others about when it comes to these like quick fix hair solutions like topicals or pills that are all over the market?
Yes, yeah. Okay, so I will say that if you want real root cause resolution, then that's not the way you want to go. But if you want to forever rely on having to wear a helmet for the rest of your life, or forever rely on having to use a shampoo for X amount of time until it stops being effective because you never got to the root cause, and then you want to find the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, then that's the way to go, right? Some people, it's not that they don't want better, it's just that they've been indoctrinated to believe
Hmm.
that if you want fuller hair when you're older, you're gonna have to do something extra for that for the rest of your life. And so they think it's normal to age and have thinning hair, and everybody just has thin and gray hair when they're older, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's just genetics, it's just aging. And actually, no, the body was born with the ability to be able to regenerate, to heal itself, to be able to uh, return to the status quo. And like I said, during my coaching with Andrea Nakayama as a certified functional nutrition counselor, I there's really a truth that I feel is not put out there enough, and that is that something's just broken, but we get to shift it back
Hmm.
into the correct pathology so that everything gets to work the way it did when you were younger. And so we get to age gracefully.
Hmm.
So I think that I do think that there are some topicals, some devices that are great, and I use them in private practice when the situation is aligned. And I think that's the best route for this client at this particular point in their journey. But at the same time, I feel like if you continue to think that that's $40 a month is gonna fix your problem, then you're only making things worse, because the longer you don't get to some of the root causes, the more compromised your overall health is gonna be. And so it takes a certain level of awareness to be able to shift your mindset, to be able to get to where you really need to be to have that resilience, where you're less susceptible to hair loss more often, where
Hmm.
you're having a lot less symptoms, and where you're feeling amazing and beautiful and confident because you feel empowered, and you're getting some results with your hair that are real.
Yeah, yeah, I completely agree. And I know that you have kind of touched on this already a little bit in our conversation so far, but why do you believe and why are you so passionate about helping your clients find the root cause of their hair loss?
I will say that as somebody who as somebody who went through this herself, right? I had hair loss for 8 years before I finally learned all the like took all the courses, learned all this information, and realized like, oh my gosh, wait a second, hair loss is reversible. And they told me in the dermatologist office that my friend, she was a dermatologist that was treating me because I worked in the industry, that there's nothing we could do but slow it down. That's what they told me. But that was their belief
Hmm.
because that was what they've seen.
Yeah.
So they're gonna pass that belief on to me. And because it's their belief and they think it's true, and now I have a choice. Am I going to adopt their belief, or am I going to adopt a new belief? And what is it going to take,
Hmm.
to be able to develop this new belief? And it's just this desire to not take no for an answer and to continue to move forward in the direction of reversing hair loss naturally. And so like my heart for everyone, and the reason I'm so passionate is because I know what it's like to go to the doctor and for them to say, there's, sorry, this is just a cardio result. I know what it's like to stay up all night Googling like
Hmm.
your type of hair loss or the type you think you have. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, but they said I have a centrifugal frontal alopecia. So I think now I don't, now there's no hope according to this article. But that
Yeah.
article was written by someone that believes that and they haven't seen anything else. But partnering with a practitioner that has seen miracles, that has paved the way for herself and others, not to be braggadocious about it, but just because I feel like when you partner with someone like that, their beliefs are going to be different, right? Because they've seen it,
Yeah.
so they believe it, right? And so that's why I'm so passionate about it because I know what it's like to just suffer in the hopelessness. That feeling of like I just gonna have to wear wigs and that costs money, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. And so I don't want anyone to suffer needlessly. Throughout the summit, in a lot of the other interviews, I say that I have this vision of a world where hopeless hair loss is a thing of the past, and every woman is able to break through her limiting belief and embody a new truth, and that truth is that hair loss is reversible. And so that's my mission because I feel like there's way too many women that are suffering that don't have to.
Yeah, that's what spoke to me when I started working with you. And I cannot tell you the hours that I spent like doom scrolling on the internet or just leaving my house to cry because I thought there was just no hope. So I do thank you for even just that, that part of working with you, reinstilling hope and not having this constant anxiety around hair loss is just invaluable. And speaking of that, investing in one-on-one coaching can be costly. But what do you believe are the benefits of having a practitioner that's working directly with you rather than these like do it yourself programs?
Well, I will say that there are, different levels of healing, right? So if someone goes through a do-it-yourself program, and they're really intentional about following all the steps, but maybe they're unclear about something, and then they don't really have that support to get clarity and have the mindset shift, they're gonna give up.
Mhm.
And they're gonna start believing, oh man, hair loss isn't reversible. I knew it. And so that belief is gonna get reinforced. And so I think that's where people set themselves up to fail, like thinking this is something as easy as just give me the pills and I'll do it. Um, I know that I'm about to uh, try to serve a lot more people and create a different level of coaching that's a little bit less um focused on one-on-one access. So all the miracles that I talk about, like in the call that I have where I teach, and in the call that I'm gonna have on Sunday, and even with Jen, they've been focused around one-on-one coaching. But I want to create a level of access where, people just have like a group component and they have access to me as a group, and we're kind of going through the fundamentals, which is like the cleaning up of the diet and being able to listen to your body and the cleaning up of your environment and the toxicants and just like the basics with some basic supplements just to kind of get people feeling less overwhelmed and feeling like they're
Mhm.
going through the steps and making some progress. But if you just stop there, you're not going to get the huge miracle. So that could definitely be a place to get started and start feeling some relief and some hope. But the real healing, I think, is going to come with like partnering with someone that is able to take you through a process. Because, for
Mhm.
example, like when I help people with their gut problems, it's not just like, oh, take this pill. It's like first we have to increase the stomach acid, and there's a whole protocol around that, and then we have to seal the gut lining, and then there's different probiotic species, and we want to start off with something more spore based, and then we want to graduate into some keystone species, and so it is like a process, and it takes
Mhm.
time, and you didn't get here just because you didn't eat good for 2 days. It was years of damage. And so it's unrealistic sometimes to think like, oh, I'm just going to take this course and then everything is going to fix itself and I'm going to be okay. And if that's where you are at that moment with what you're able to invest, that's fine. But just thinking that that's going to be your long-term solution, and if that didn't work, then you don't have any hope, that is where you set yourself up for failure.
Yeah. Um, there are a lot of hair loss practitioners out there. And I know that people who are, searching for different people to partner with might be looking at multiple different options. Um, I mean, aside from the fact that you really do look into the whole person, what do you believe sets you apart from the other hair loss practitioners that are out there right now?
I would say the fact that I went through it myself and I have the actual before and after pictures and
Mhm.
my hair loss was intense. It just creates a different level of compassion. You know, it's not like people were coming to me and I had to try to help each person. It was like I'm my own guinea pig, and I all the supplements I recommend to people, I take them myself. And like
Mhm.
I'm always evolving. I'm always learning new things. I'm always taking new courses, getting new certifications. I'm always growing just to be able to create a better result for my clients faster. And so that, and then I think another reason why what sets me apart is what I said before, having that group component and just like really just really resonating and caring because I went through it myself. So if someone's partnering with someone with hair loss, they don't have their own before and after pictures and they don't have, like the people that are willing to come on camera and be like, "Oh my gosh, this changed my life." Then I
Mhm.
would say like, keep that into consideration as you're trying to make your decision.
Absolutely. And I will say from personal experience, the one thing that I valued highly with working with you is the ability to collaborate, to switch gears if we needed to. I had my own autoimmune issues that we had to navigate around. And so Surreal really did go out of her way to make sure that I was accommodated in all of those aspects. So, for the people who are ready to sign up and start working with you, what do you believe are some non-negotiables that, might have to, might present roadblocks for people who are working with you or wanting to work with you?
Do you mean some of the thoughts that they might be having in their head or
Yeah, it could be thought processes. It could just be things that maybe they are unwilling to do, or just stuff like that. Like, what do you think sets a good ground, for working with you as a practitioner?
I would say if someone is wanting to become a volcanic and naturally reverse their hair loss, in the cases where people have failed and they haven't gotten the result,
Hmm.
it has been because they weren't fully convicted that this was going to work. And so they sabotaged themselves and they didn't really do the work. And they're like, well, it's not really going to matter if I don't change my diet or do the damage protocol. There's a protocol that I have called the damage protocol that I tell my clients, like, listen, I know you're going to go to the wedding and you're going to have the cake. I know you're going to have date night with hubby and you're going to have the wine. That's fine. Your hair is going to suffer unless you do this damage
Hmm.
protocol. So you don't feel super deprived. You still get to, have some normalcy, so to speak, in your life, but at least you're preparing your body for the damage and making it so that you're not suffering as much hair loss or thinning or none at all if you're doing that well. So there's that. And so people that don't take that seriously or they don't believe it's gonna work and they'll be like, oh well, I don't really have to take, this or that or like this is just, I feel like maybe that is not really necessary. Or they're like, oh, I just want to like just trickle everything in. And that happened in your case, like you were like, oh my gosh, like I don't know if I want to do like all these supplements right now, all at once.
Yeah,
And I will say that in the front end, there are more supplements, and then towards the end, you start tapering down.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and but we did, but like I have everything in a combination where it's like they counteract each other, and so like if there was something that you were gonna do like a detox, and that could make you prone to hair loss because you're genetically inclined to it. Well, I
Mhm.
have something around that to prevent it. But if we're compartmentalizing and just trickling things in, then you might not get the full benefit. So,
Mhm.
that's something that I have to kind of like buy people into that so that they don't suffer that. And then just not believing in general. I think just having doubts and or about the environment. Sometimes I'm like, hey, your environment is an issue. Like I had a client that she was living in an RV and we were doing a lot of things and I wasn't seeing the result. And I was seeing that she was reordering things. And we did eventually get her a result.
Mhm.
But eventually like she just like I told her like we're kind of stuck here because of the fact that I know that there's something in your environment that's sabotaging this. And she just didn't want to believe it. Right.
Right.
And so those I think are the biggest things, like just having the lack of belief, not being that committed to the program because you don't think it's really gonna work. and then just having, this unwillingness to kind of like go through the coaching. But the people who like you don't have to be 100%, you don't have to be perfect, but the people who
Mhm.
give it a good enough try and that they're consistent, long enough, right? Because we have all different result timelines. Some people can get results in a couple of weeks, some people get them in a couple of months. It really just
Mhm.
depends on the contingencies of that situation. How toxic is their environment? How toxic are they? How well are they doing the diet and the protocol? And, like I said, you don't have to be 100% with a diet, but some kind of level of trying is really necessary in order to, start compounding those results. So those are or if somebody has hair loss because they had a burn on their scalp, like literally. And I haven't had a client with this, but I just want to say the cases where I'm not sure that I can get the result, just so that
Mhm.
we're clear. So nobody's like, oh, she's just saying
Yeah.
that everyone can get it, can get better. Um, if you have like a severe burn on your scalp, I'm not gonna say that yes, hair loss is reversible. Although I have heard of a story where somebody was able to get their hair even though there was a burn. And so
Wow.
I don't think it's impossible. I just will say
Mhm.
I don't have the practice doing it.
Yeah.
Or if someone had a severe infection, like a severe
Mhm.
infection where you ended up getting necrosis, which is like a big scar, or like there was pus all over your head, and
Mhm.
and now and now maybe you don't have it, but your skin looks completely different. Like you don't see
Yeah.
pores there anymore, or it's like there's no more pores like that. So that might be a situation where it's like I'm not sure. And so
Yeah.
I wouldn't say like definitely come to me. I wouldn't necessarily say you don't have any hope. I would just say like I'm not sure, right?
Mhm.
And I can never say I'm sure in any situation, but I'm not as confident, right? Is what I want
Yeah.
to say. And if someone's coming to
Okay.
me, I want to get them confident, a real result. And the last one would be, let's see, it was a cut. Like you literally had some kind of surgery and they cut into you and they did stitches,
Mhm.
and then the skin healed completely differently where that cut is. So those would be the cases where I feel
Okay.
like I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to echo in what you had said is that, a lot of the results are not these overnight things. We're undoing damage of years. And the program does last. I mean, I was in a 6-month program, so this is a longer period of time. But that required me as a client to maintain accountability. And so I want to know how you help your clients maintain their accountability throughout the course of their program so that they aren't unintentionally throwing wrenches into their progress.
Yes, yes, yes. So a couple of ways. Okay, there we go. A couple of ways. Number one, there is that in that 6 or 12 month program, there is that one-on-one access to me,
Mhm.
right? And so you're asking questions, you're, coming back telling me symptoms and stuff like that. And so we're tracking that. There are also symptoms trackers. So we see over time that there's been a decrease in the symptoms, and it happens pretty much like 90% of the time. Like there's just like a decrease in symptoms as long as you're trying to do the protocol. So that helps with accountability because you're just like, oh my gosh, it kind of is working. You didn't realize it until you start reporting it back and you start realizing that. And we also have these 21-day challenges as a community. For 21 days, we don't eat sugar, gluten, dairy, corn, or rice. And so we're trading recipes, we're, sharing hacks and all of this stuff. And so I think that brings a level of camaraderie and encouragement, right? Because people feel like supported in that process. Like they're not doing this alone and other people are doing it with them, and they're learning as they go, really learning from the group collectively. Um, Another way that we have accountability is when we're not doing those challenges, we still meet regularly, to kind of help bring that big picture together and answer questions and just kind of meet people where they are. We also have a group chat for the people that are in the one-on-one coaching where we're always, remaining in communication between calls in the chat if there are any questions or someone sees a video, like some kind of reel. Remember we had a reel not too long ago where some guy was like, "Oh, the ladies, if you fix your adrenals, you're gonna fix your hair." And then you were
Yes.
like, "Okay."
But how? Thanks. But how?
Right? Yeah. And so we talk about that. It's a safe space to talk. So
Yeah.
that's another way that we have accountability. And then we have the food trackers that we fill out when we do these 21-day challenges, that help people understand, like, are you actually responsibly eating the way you're supposed to? And what are your choices developing into as far as your symptoms are concerned? Are there less? Are there more? What's the hold up there? So that's super revealing. And I think that helps with accountability. as well. Are there anything else since you're in the program? Am I missing anything else that brings
I mean,
accountability?
honestly, I also think that just in speaking with you, I mean, you pull it out whether or not, you
Yeah.
whether or not the client wants to give that up. You're like, okay, but are you really like, staying on top of this? Or I did see, in your tracker that like you might have thought that you weren't eating sugar, but this has sugar in it. So
Right.
you do stay on top of it. And I even after being out of the program, and still doing daily trackers because like you said it helps with a number of things. You can go back and see like from 4 months ago, what was my hair fall then, what were my symptoms then, and it just is so helpful. The community is great too because I've made friends there and you're not alone in your hair loss anymore. You have somebody that you can speak to and they know what you're going through because a lot of the times friends and family members might not have the same experience, and it's tough being on your own, but also seeing that the wins that people have help you maintain accountability because you're like, I want that too. So it is really
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to that or?
Well, I think so. At this point, people are wondering, like, well, what happened with her hair, and how did her hair improve? And I don't know if maybe you want to talk about that a little bit about your
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, so in the beginning of working with Cyril, I was dealing with massive hair shedding in a way that I had never had before. And on top of that, I was also dealing with folliculitis, scalp itching, symptoms of MCAS. I had already had two autoimmune conditions, so I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know if it was my celiac. I didn't know if it was my Hashimoto's. I was all over the place. And so the biggest thing for me in working with Cyril was really getting that hair shedding to stop because the level of anxiety that I had around going into the shower daily was astronomical. And it was changing who I was as a person because I just couldn't stand seeing like so much hair come out of my head and not having a way to stop it. So it did take us a little bit longer because I was resistant to some of the suggestions that Cyril had surrounding the environment and the amount of supplements that I needed initially to take. And if I could go back in time, I would say that I wish that I listened a little bit sooner because I feel like we would have gotten to the point that we're at a lot quicker. But I will say, I think the biggest thing for me right now is I have seen hair regrowth at the temple. My hair fall is down to almost nothing. And we're still working a little bit more on getting the hair to thicken in, but it is not this like hopeless feeling anymore. It is not this, just pit of despair that I was in only a few months ago. So it's just been really amazing because I feel like I got myself back. And I feel like I'm not like a slave to this anxiety anymore, which is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're helping your family because, like, now that we
Yes.
uncovered that there was actually really something wrong with your environment, you're noticing that
Yeah.
was it eczema on your son? I think
It
you
was
said.
eczema on my son,
Yeah.
my husband and his, and my daughter all had kind of symptoms. So once I actually started piecing everybody's symptoms together and not looking at them in isolation, I was realizing, wow, like we really are being affected by our environment, and we're working on that now, which is, it's going to be a project, but it's worth it because it's going to help our health in the long run.
Yeah, and it's gonna help so that when we do get to that process of like thickening in your hair, it's just gonna be so much
Yes.
faster because we're not dealing with the influx of everything coming in. And I have had cases where people still got thickening even though they didn't deal with the environment, but it
Hmm.
was just a slow grow
Yeah.
versus like it can compound when you reduce the influx of toxicants. So that's something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. So I know how I have fared after working with you, but give everybody a picture of how a graduate from your program is different from start to finish of your program. What changes for them after they're done with you?
Oh yeah, great. So I think when they first come to me, they're in all of these Facebook groups that are like, just give up.
Yeah.
Just give up, okay? Like there's just no hope. I've tried everything. And so there's just so much trauma around that.
Yeah.
And just question of, do I? Or do I keep fighting for what I really want, right? And so
Mhm.
there's that transition of like moving away from that kind of that thought process into this thought process of like, wait a second, like I, I have more control over this than I thought. And having all these little mini wins, you start becoming more and more of a believer. And so when you're going through the program, like the first thing that happens is, we start looking at your whole history. Like I have a intake form. It's like over 90 questions, which some people are gonna be like, "Oh my God, that's so much." But the right person is gonna be like, "Why isn't it 100?" Because you really want to really do like an in-depth understanding of what happened with this person. And so in the beginning, we really map out, and we're gonna talk about this on Sunday on the live call. So I hope you guys come to that. But we really map out like what happened in this person's life, the different times in their life where they became more compromised and more susceptible to having hair loss. And they
Mhm.
may have had little episodes where things were getting increasingly worse, and then boom, they had this one episode of this one trigger, this one moment, something happened where now all of a sudden their hair loss has become unmanageable. And for me, that was when I got off of birth control. For example, that's when all the shedding and it just got super progressively worse. I don't remember from your intake form when it was in your case, but that the hair loss got a lot worse. But just like identifying that is a part of the puzzle. And so people come in, they get that clarity, and so then they start understanding like, oh my gosh, like there is hope because now that I understand how it happened, and I tell them like how we're going to reverse it. And so
Mhm.
we create this plan on how we're going to, because there's the usual suspects when it comes to hair loss and thinning. There's mold toxicity, there's food allergies, there's an overactive immune system, there's compromised detoxification, there's blood sugar balance, there's hormones. There's a bunch, and I'm going to talk about that on my recorded call that I have. So make sure you catch that so you understand. But going through those usual suspects, really does a lot of the work to kind of like help put someone in that healing state. There's the endocrine system and making sure you're in a parasympathetic versus sympathetic, but without getting too technical, that people really start to understand that, wow, for my case, for me, there's hope and this is how. And so they're bought
Mhm.
in. And then they start learning like how to eat, how to understand that like I had a client, we did the 21-day challenge. After that, it was Super Bowl Sunday, she had some corn chips and her nose started to get mucusy from that. And
Mhm.
she oh no, it wasn't that. She started coughing. She started coughing a lot after having the chips. And she realized like I get these symptoms around corn chips. And I was like, well, when the body has too many toxins, it will create mucus as an
Mhm.
emunctory function to get rid of more toxins. And so your body's coughing to get rid of the mucus. And so she's just like, oh my gosh, yeah, like I realized that does happen. And so it's like they create this level of awareness around their symptoms and their choices. And it doesn't have to be
Mhm.
just that. It could be like your environment. Like from in my case, I realized that dust was a huge issue for me, and I would have massive amounts of shedding because the dust was toxic. And so just creating this environment where there was less dust in my home was a big part of my healing journey, and it is for a lot of my clients actually. And so they start kind of developing that framework of like what it's going to take to live this lifestyle where their body's more primed for healing, and then they get into the point where we start dismantling the dysfunction and bringing sufficiency to the deficiency, right?
Mhm.
So like if someone doesn't have enough iron, it's not so much like, oh, just take an iron supplement. It's like, well, do you have enough stomach acid? And like what's going on around that's creating that and getting to the root cause of that. So we get into that work where we're dismantling the dysfunction. And then we kind of move into this place or this rhythm of like, this is how I get to live my life if I want to progressively get results. This is how I live my life just to keep the results that I have. Like, how do I eat? How do I think? What do I do? What's just to maintain? And then this is the way that I live if I want my hair to get worse, right? Like, not deal with mold in the home, eat certain foods, uh, not sleep well and fix that problem. And so, because for me to help someone, it's not like, hey, I'm just gonna focus on your hair. It's like we have to work on balancing hormones. We have to work on gut healing. We have to work on a lot of things, right? To kind of get so it's not just like the hair gets better, it's like their libido comes back, they're sleeping better,
Mhm.
it's the persistent weight loss issue goes away. So there's a lot of different things that get addressed in the process. So it's not just about the hair, but the hair definitely is the most important thing. And so I think with me, like some people might go to another practitioner and they'll try to work through like normalizing symptoms and labs and whatnot. But in the process, they might lose more hair, and they're like, "No, just work through it. Just suffer through it for a little bit, and then it's gonna regrow." In my situation, or in my coaching experience, it's like if your hair gets worse, like we're gonna try for that not to continue. Like we have to reassess. Like I know in your case there were some things that we were doing, and you're like, my shedding's getting worse, and I was just like, let's see if that persists. And then when we saw that it did, it was like, okay,
Mhm.
we have to change course, because the whole
Yeah.
point of you coming to me is to protect the hair, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, but we still got you more of that resolution, but we just
Hmm.
had to like change the methodology to get it. And so that's a whole process that we uncover. And I think that's by the time they're done with me, like people have a clear understanding of like what makes their hair worse, what makes it what how do they maintain the results, and how do they get better results. And so I think that's really what the process that person goes through. Because it's not like there's no cure for hair loss. It's not like, "Oh, for the rest of my life, I'm never gonna deal with it forever." Like I
Yeah.
know that if I eat the wrong things, if I get exposed to toxins and I don't care, if I don't support my body where I have the handicaps, like I don't have tonsils anymore, certain things like that, and I don't support my body, I'm gonna be more susceptible, but I know how to fix it. So it's not like, "Oh, why is this happening to me?" It's like a clue, like when I found out feathers created dust and they were making me sick, it was a clue. I was like, "Oh man, I got a lot of hair
Mhm.
shedding going on." And I fixed it. And so that's what I help my clients to do. I help them fix it.
Absolutely. I have such a different understanding of body systems now than I did before. And I always thought that I knew a lot of stuff, but I didn't realize like how many things that I knew in isolation of one another. And I wasn't able to piece them together. So in working with you, I'm able to piece them together, but I'm also able to listen to those cues from my body that I was ignoring before. And they're all very important. So I just appreciate and love that you're here not only to help with the hair loss, but to help teach people, you know, other systems in their body, why they're important and why they're interconnected, because it all does lead to helping with not just your hair, but your overall well-being, which is so important.
And did the
Uh,
course, the 10 module course that I have, did you find that helpful in helping you understand that?
I will say that it was so informative. And at first, had gone through them and I was like, wow, I really have to sit down and take my time with each one of these. This is not stuff that you just run through. It is information that is just so rich with so many pearls of things that you're going to need to know moving forward. And this doesn't even have to deal with people with hair loss. It's just overall, like, well-being. There are so many things that, and I had worked with functional medicine practitioners before, and nobody had told me any of these things. Nobody had shared this information. So the course in and of itself, not even working with Cyril one-on-one, was information that was invaluable to me and that I still come back to and listen to over and over again. So it was really, really important. And I'm so happy that you took the time to give your knowledge base to everybody that does sign up for your program, because it's just so helpful. It is life-changing information.
Yeah, it's available in that 6 or 12 month coaching program. But
Yeah.
was it anything that you thought you could Google?
No, and if I did Google it, it was either like not the right information in its context, or it was again in isolation, and there would have been no way that I would have been able to put the information or link it together. I mean, I am a researcher. I love to research. I love to look into things. I had never gotten this type of information in one sitting, and I have to be honest, I don't really think that a lot of people have that knowledge base to share. So it was very, very helpful to be able to have it all in one place and be able to come back to it. And even like with the timestamps, go through each separate thing. It was so easy to navigate too.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I think the only reason I was able to come up with that was because like every single thing I learned, like whether it was Andrea Nakayama or Daniel Pompa or Tony Robbins, whatever like kind of event that I went where I was like trying to figure life out, I always was just looking at it from the lens of hair loss. And I was just like, how does this apply to hair loss? It's like I just had this filter. And when I made the course, that's how I made it. Just like, how do I
Mhm.
tie it all back into hair loss? So I'm glad you found value in that.
Yeah, and I mean there are even, things that you share within the community from the course, regardless of people that, have signed up for whatever program. And I actually do want to touch on the community because When I had first joined with you, and this is actually before even signing on with you, I had found your Facebook page, and I was so relieved to hear somebody out there that was preaching that there is hope to hair loss. And then I saw this wonderful community of people that were not just in the Facebook page, but then, on top of that, you have another community once you are in the program. So I know how this has helped me, but I want you to speak on the larger scale of how the community that you have created has empowered women in this hair loss community.
Yeah, so I have a Facebook group called Reversing Hair Loss Naturally, and that's how Jen found me. And so there's like, I don't know, like over 6,000 people in there right now. And I've had it for some years. And so it's been a journey, just like building that community. And um, I really utilized it to try to re-indoctrinate people. Like people come to me brainwashed in that group. Like they come brainwashed, and the brainwashing that they have is like you need a medication to fix the problem, or you got to use the right shampoo, or what's the magic pill you have to take, and there's really no hope. Eventually, you're gonna need surgery or wigs or whatever. Uh, you might have to do PRP for the rest of your life. And so they come to me with these beliefs that they've been indoctrinated to believe. And in that community, I'm once a week I go live just to answer community questions. And so like by doing that, I feel really connected to people. If I didn't have that community, I would feel disconnected somewhat with hair loss and thinning because my relief is there. I'm not I'm not obsessing as much for my own situation
Mhm.
because I already know what I need to know. And so, but by having that community, I really can stay connected to the pain that people feel and keep that compassion and see how lost they are and just do my best to try to not just give them the correct information, but also instill hope by helping them understand a different way to think about it. Because if they could just think about it a different way, then they're going to have a different belief about it. And then with that different belief, they can have a different outcome. And so that group on Facebook, Reversing Hair Loss Naturally, I think is useful in kind of being that light bulb and being that candle in the dark and just helping people like reframe their beliefs and get information that you know they can't Google or the right information from something that they may have learned somewhere else that was wrong. So that's I think the I hope that answered your question, but that's
Absolutely.
the value I see in that community.
Yeah, I think it's just been one of the pivotal moments for me was finding your page and just changing the trajectory of how my hair loss story has gone, and I've seen the same for so many people. So thank you for offering that, for going out of your way to provide this to people, out of the kindness of your own heart. Truly, because you're doing this every week for free and answering these questions for people, whether they're in your program or not. So it's very generous of you. Um, is
Thank you.
there anything else that you want to add for the viewers before we wrap up?
Yeah, I want to give God the glory, because I don't want to just take credit for this myself. I will say that like when I was in the middle of my despair, I went crazy. I spent $75,000 in a very short period of time. Like $20,000 alone I spent on hyperbaric oxygen therapy because I had mold poisoning. And my certifications weren't cheap. And of course, like just, the tests, the practitioners, the supplements, the whatever, the specialists, like all the stuff. And so, but in the middle of all of that, I took a lot of pictures. And the only reason I did that was because I was so convicted that I was gonna get the result. Like I was just like, I have to document this. No one's gonna believe it. If I just tell them, I'd have to show them. And there was a point in my journey where I felt so stuck because the reason why my hair got to the pinnacle of how bad it got in 2020 was because I had just broken up with my ex that cheated on me with a girl that was 10 years younger. I mean, I was 33. She was 23. And then 6 months later, my hair was horrible because I decided to go on an all raw fruit diet and I
Mhm.
had way too much fruit. Way too much fruit. And I had fungal overgrowth and I was inflamed from all the sugar, and my hair got see-through. It was just like it was just like the whole, it was just super, like you would just see through it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just scarring or fibrosis, calcifications, whatever you want to call it, all over my scalp. And I had gotten some results where like it wasn't shedding as much, and I was seeing I also had balding right here. There was like circles, right, of
Mm-hmm.
just right. It was a very wide gap. And I was seeing some results, but I still hadn't gotten like the thickening and the scarring to, break down. And that was the one that they say there's no hope from that. Like when you got that far, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember that at the time my house was making me sick and I didn't know. And I would wake up every morning and the first thing I did was I would try to go like this. And you see how I can move my scalp?
Yeah.
I wasn't able to do that. It was always super, super stiff. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember I would go to the inversion table in my closet and I would hang upside down and I would just try to bring more flexibility because I knew if there wasn't flexibility, I wasn't getting blood flow and I wasn't getting nutrients there. But I remember one morning I did that and it was just getting so thin and I cried out into the heaven and I said, God, please help me. Like I know that there's a way that I could regrow this. I know there's a way I can break this down. Like please just tell me, just show me how what it is. And I remember going to the interwebs and looking up something that I had looked up a million times, but this time I got a completely different result. And it was about breaking down like calcifications and fibrosis and scar
Mm-hmm.
tissue and stuff like that. And I was just like, this is one thing I haven't tried yet. And then I tried it and that was it. That was the missing key. Like that was the last piece to my puzzle
Mm-hmm.
that I was missing. And at that point, it was just my results were just compounding. Like it was just so drastic how much better I was getting. And then I just continued on that knowledge base. And I was just like, wow, like this was God. Like he liberated me, like, cause that would have been like just I think like everyone has a reason why they don't want to go bald. But for me, with it being because like I broke up with my boyfriend and that I thought I was gonna marry, and then because he cheated on me, and then
Yeah.
6 months later I go age like this. Like I just I didn't want that to be my story. Like I was like,
Yeah.
I'm so hopeless, I was like, gosh, like, I just like I really just didn't want that to be my story, and I think that's why I really just put all my limiting beliefs aside and went all the way through it. And so I just wanted, there was a question that I asked all my speakers, and it was like, uh, share a story of a time where there was something impossible and then you were able to get through it, and like, remind that woman who's watching this that she needs to step into her personal power to get that result. And so I just want to speak to every woman right now that is listening and they're just like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if I can get through it. Like I don't know if I'm gonna get results. Like there's so many things that I've done that have failed. How could this possibly be different? I want to let you know that like you were fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you desire it, then I'm Christian. I don't want to like impart my like shove my beliefs down anyone's throat, but there's this verse that says like delight yourself like in God and he will give you the desires of your heart. And that's exactly what I did. Like I was just very committed to just that belief and just like having that belief, that conviction too, like this is gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like by believing it was gonna happen and just not taking no for an answer, like I made it possible. And so he helped me make it possible. So I just want to give him the credit too, because I know I couldn't have done it without him. And I feel like the reason he allowed me to go through that miracle was so that I could help the people that are watching this. And I get emotional sometimes because I know that you guys are suffering and like I don't want you to suffer. And like whether you partner with me or anyone else, because there's so many different amazing speakers here, everyone's going to resonate with different people. Whoever it is that you partner with, I just don't want you to give up because you're still, you're by giving up, you're ignoring some of the deeper things that are going to be much more serious, and you're still going to spend money on wigs anyway. You might as well just spend the money on getting what you really want. And it just makes sense when you think about it that way. And like I just want to like impart that belief on you that like, miracles happen every day. And if you put your faith first, faith forward, and then miracles follow. So I really want to impart that on you guys so that you feel empowered to just go for it. Go for it. Go for it and don't take no for an answer because that's the only way you're gonna get it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Cyril. This has been an amazing conversation. I appreciate you taking the time with me to talk about this and the time to, help everybody out there understand a little bit more about who you are as a practitioner and what your program is about. And hopefully our viewers gain some additional insight into your program. I want to thank the people who joined us today to watch, and hopefully I will see you in the Belcanix program.
Oh, Jen, thank you so much for doing this for me. It means so much to me. Like, you're not just a client, you're a friend. And like I feel like end up becoming friends with a lot of my clients, because
Yeah.
we just when you start talking about poop with someone, there's just like this
You can't
level
help but yeah.
of this barrier that just comes down. And so I feel so honored to have been like able to help you and like anyone, right? But it's just like I'm so proud of you. And
Thank
just like
you.
the shift that you've made and just like going from this frantic state of counting all your hairs to like this belief of like, oh my gosh, like this is just I can see this is now it's about like just being that support for your family and like just seeing that shift in you like it makes like everything just so worth it to me, and I'm just so honored that I've met you and that you would do this for me and for all the viewers, so thank you so much.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you, Cyril.
Okay, all right, you guys. We'll see you
All
guys in
right.
the next masterclass, and don't forget Sunday live call. You're not gonna want to miss it. I am picking 3 winners. Okay, someone's gonna get free coaching, someone's gonna get discounted coaching. So you want to make sure you go on Sunday. You want to make sure you stay until the end, and of course, you're gonna get a lot of value. And thank you again for watching. Take care.
Bye, everybody.